They were rivals, constantly clashing, until late nights, stolen moments, and a summer under the stars changed everything. John Carter and Leo Hayes had been sworn enemies since their freshman year of high school. No one really knew why. Some said it started when Saman, the star soccer player, accidentally knocked Leo's books out of his hands on the first day of school. Others believed it was because Leo, the school's top student, once outscored Saman on a history exam, and Saman had never let it go. Either way, the rivalry was legendary. They argued in class, competed in every event, and could barely stand being in the same room. That was until senior year. Their English teacher, Mrs. Reynolds, had a twisted sense of humor. She paired them together for a semester-long project on Shakespeare's sonnets. "You two have an undeniable chemistry," she had said with a knowing smile. "Use it for something other than glaring at each other." At first, working together was torture. Saman grumbled about Leo's bossy attitude, and Leo couldn't stand Saman's carefree approach to academics. But as they spent more time together, something shifted. Late-night study sessions turned into deep conversations. They started learning things about each other that no one else knew. Saman discovered that Leo loved classic rock, and Leo found out that Saman wrote poetry in his spare time but was too embarrassed to share it. Saman found himself studying Leo more than he cared to admit. The way Leo's dark, wavy hair framed his sharp, intelligent eyes, how his glasses would slip down his nose when he was too focused to notice, the way his lips would part slightly when he was lost in thought. Saman hated how effortlessly beautiful Leo looked, even when he was irritated. He hated even more that he was starting to admire it. Leo carried himself with a quiet confidence that demanded attention, but there was something almost delicate about him, something that made Saman want to get closer, to understand what lay beneath the sharp remarks and perfectly organized notes. His skin was smooth, kissed by warm undertones, and when the sunlight hit him just right, it made Saman's breath hitch. Leo had an elegance to him that Saman could never quite put into words, like an old song you couldn't stop humming or the final page of a book you wished would never end. Leo wasn't just the school's top student. He was meticulous, driven, and surprisingly stubborn. He had a sharp tongue when provoked, but a quiet kindness that showed in the small things, offering his last pen to a classmate, staying late to tutor younger students, or listening intently when someone spoke. Saman realized Leo wasn't just his rival anymore. He was someone he was beginning to admire, and that was terrifying. Things became even more complicated when Nathan Rivera, Saman's childhood friend and another soccer star, started showing interest in Leo. Unlike Saman, Nathan was straightforward with his feelings, openly flirting with Leo and making it clear he wanted more than friendship. This only fueled Saman's frustration. He told himself it was just because Nathan was stepping on his territory, but deep down, he knew it was jealousy. Then came Saman's birthday party day. Surprisingly, Leo showed up, looking somewhat hesitant but still effortlessly composed. His presence didn't go unnoticed, especially by Saman's friends, who immediately started teasing him. "Didn't expect your enemy to show up, huh?" One of them nudged Saman with a smirk. "What's next? Slow dancing together." Leo rolled his eyes, but there was the faintest hint of amusement in his expression. "Please, I'm only here for the cake." Yet, despite his words, Leo stayed close to Saman for most of the night. At some point, Leo handed Saman a small wrapped box. "Happy birthday," he said, looking away as if uncomfortable. Saman smirked, holding up the gift. "Oh? Didn't know you cared enough to get me something." Leo huffed. "Don't flatter yourself. I just didn't want to show up empty-handed." Saman unwrapped the present, revealing a sleek, limited edition pen, something he had once casually mentioned wanting during one of their late-night study sessions. His fingers curled around it, surprised at how thoughtful the gift was. He glanced at Leo, his voice teasing yet soft. "So, if this is my present, what about you?" Do I get you too? Leo's breath hitched for just a second before he rolled his eyes, shoving Saman's shoulder lightly. Shut up and enjoy the party. At some point, the teasing shifted to a playful dare. Saman, you should learn to play Leo's favorite game, one of Leo's friends suggested. See if you can keep up. Saman scoffed but accepted the challenge, sitting beside Leo on the couch as he handed him a controller. The game was a fast-paced strategy game that required quick reflexes and precision, things Saman usually excelled at on the soccer field, but not so much in virtual battles. Leo smirked, watching Saman struggle. You're terrible at this. Shut up. I just need practice. Leo chuckled, leaning in slightly, his voice softer now. Here, let me show you. Not long before prom, Saman overheard a conversation he hadn't expected. One of Leo's admirers had worked up the courage to ask him to prom. Leo, slightly flustered, gave a non-committal answer, saying he'd think about it. That was all Saman needed to hear. That afternoon, Saman found Leo in the library, placing himself dramatically in Leo's space. Go to prom with me, he blurted out. Leo raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? Saman huffed, softening his voice. Please, Leo, I'll be on my best behavior, and you know I'd look good in a tux. Leo sighed, closing his book. And why exactly should I say yes? Saman leaned in, tilting his head with a grin. Because if you don't, I'll make a scene in front of the entire school until you agree. Leo gave him a long, unimpressed stare. You wouldn't. Try me. Leo exhaled, rubbing his temple before muttering, Fine. Saman grinned, punching the air in victory. I knew you secretly liked me. Leo rolled his eyes. I'm regretting this already. Prom night arrived, and Saman wasn't sure how, but he and Leo ended up at the same after-party. The music was loud, people were dancing, and yet somehow they found themselves outside on the balcony, away from the noise. The night air was cool, and when Leo shivered slightly, Saman wordlessly shrugged off his jacket and draped it over Leo's shoulders. Leo looked at him, surprised, before murmuring a quiet, Thanks. Prom night arrived, and Saman couldn't deny how good Leo looked. Dressed in a deep navy suit that hugged his frame perfectly, Leo looked like he had stepped out of a dream. His dark hair, usually a little unkempt from constantly running his hands through it, was neatly styled, though a few stubborn strands still fell over his forehead. His sharp features looked even more striking under the soft glow of the ballroom lights, and his silver cufflinks shimmered when he moved. He was effortlessly elegant, exuding the kind of quiet confidence that made it impossible to look away. Saman, on the other hand, had chosen a sleek black tux with a dark red tie, complementing his warm, sun-kissed complexion. His hair was slightly tousled, giving him a roguish charm, and the mischievous glint in his eyes made it clear he was up to something. As the night went on, laughter and music filled the air. The dance floor was alive with energy, couples moving in sync, lost in the moment. Saman had been watching Leo from afar, noticing how people gravitated toward him. It was undeniable. Leo had an aura that drew people in. Finally, Saman decided he had waited long enough. He approached Leo, stopping just in front of him. Dance with me, he said, a playful yet sincere glint in his eyes. Leo blinked, caught off guard. What? Saman smirked. You heard me. Dance with me. Leo hesitated, glancing around. Saman, come on, it's just a dance. Saman extended his hand, his voice softer now. No competition, no rivalry, just us. Leo looked at him for a long moment before sighing, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Fine. Saman took his hand, leading him onto the dance floor. The moment their hands touched, something electric passed between them, making Saman's heartbeat quicken. The music shifted to a slow song, and Saman placed a steady hand on Leo's waist, pulling him closer. Leo rested a hesitant hand on Saman's shoulder, and for a moment, neither spoke. The world around them faded as they moved in perfect sync, their steps effortless as if they had done this 1,000 times before. Saman could feel the warmth of Leo's body, the subtle rise and fall of his breath. He had never been this close to him before. Not like this. Not without the usual banter or competition. "Didn't think you were the dancing type," Leo murmured. Saman grinned. "There's a lot you don't know about me." Leo met his gaze, and for the first time there was no sarcasm, no sharp remarks, just something unspoken, something softer. His golden brown eyes held an emotion Saman couldn't quite place, but it made his chest tighten all the same. The song ended, but neither of them let go. The room erupted in applause, and to their shock, they had won the dance competition. Saman laughed, spinning Leo once more just for the fun of it, and Leo, despite himself, laughed too. As they stepped off the dance floor, Leo shook his head. "I can't believe we won." Saman leaned in, his voice teasing yet undeniably fond. "Maybe we make a good team after all." Leo rolled his eyes, but the smile on his lips gave him away. And for the rest of the night, they stayed close, lingering in each other's space as if something between them had finally clicked into place. During summer break, a group of friends planned a trip to the lake, and Leo and Saman both got dragged along. It was supposed to be just a fun getaway before college applications and adulthood took over, but for them it became something more. The days were filled with laughter, swimming in the lake, and late-night bonfires. Yet somehow, Saman and Leo always found themselves drifting away from the group, lost in their own world. They'd go on walks along the quiet shore, playfully pushing each other into the water, and sit on the dock, watching the sky shift colors at dusk. "Come with me," Saman murmured, nudging Leo's shoulder. Leo raised an eyebrow but didn't argue as Saman pulled him away from the group. They walked in silence until they reached the edge of the lake, where the water mirrored the star-streaked sky. They sat down on the grass, their shoulders brushing. The night was peaceful, the only sounds being the distant crackling of the fire and the soft lapping of water against the shore. "You've been quiet," Saman finally said, looking over at Leo. Leo sighed, hugging his knees to his chest. "Just thinking." "About?" Leo hesitated before glancing at Saman, his golden brown eyes unreadable. "About this year. About us." Saman's breath caught in his throat. He had known, deep down he had known for a while, that whatever was between them wasn't just rivalry or even friendship anymore. It was something deeper, something unspoken, and it had been growing with every late-night study session, every teasing glance, every dance, every stolen moment. Saman swallowed. "And what have you figured out?" Leo exhaled a quiet laugh, shaking his head. "That you're insufferable." Saman chuckled, nudging him playfully. "Yeah? And?" Leo looked at him then, really looked at him, and in the starlight, Saman could see every flicker of hesitation, every ounce of unspoken emotion. "And that I don't think I'd want to be without you." Saman felt something inside him shift, like the final piece of a puzzle clicking into place. He reached out, his fingers brushing against Leo's before slowly intertwining them. Leo didn't pull away. For a moment they just sat there, hand in hand, the warmth between them enough to chase away the cool night air. "So," Saman said softly, squeezing Leo's hand, "does that mean you're finally admitting that you like me?" Leo rolled his eyes, but there was no real irritation in his expression, just a quiet sort of acceptance. "Maybe." Saman grinned, leaning in just enough that their foreheads touched. "Good, because I really like you too." Leo let out a soft, breathy laugh, and when he closed his eyes, Saman knew this was it. This was where they were always meant to be. And as they sat under the vast summer sky, hands clasped, hearts pounding in sync, Salmon realized that sometimes the greatest love stories weren't about grand gestures or dramatic confessions. Sometimes they were about stolen moments, about quiet admissions under starlit skies.